In April 1895, one of the most mysterious murder scenes in Utah history was discovered at Pelican Point, just south of Saratoga Springs. The lake's waters were just thawing from the winter freeze when a body washed up on the shore. Two more were found a few days later, several miles south. All three murder victims were shot in the head with a 38 caliber pistol, and one had been shot in the chest. All three men were cousins. Albert Enstrom was 22, Alfred Nelson, 17, and Andrew Johnson was 20. Lawmen from around the country swooped in to begin pointing fingers. Enstrom's stepfather, Harry Hayes, was next to be accused. He had a reputation for being a mean eccentric, and when informed of the killings, authorities believed that he didn't respond as he should have, calling his reaction nonchalant. Neighbors then told police that Hayes and Enstrom argued often before the disappearance, and that at least once Hayes threatened the boy with a gun. And then, because Enstrom's stepfather was accused, authorities began to conjecture it was a family conspiracy and pointed the finger at the stepfather of Johnson, a man named William Tyrrell, a grandson of Porter Rockwell, a very interesting character. Police believed that the two stepfathers killed Enstrom and Johnson because their mothers owned the property and they wanted it and feared that the mothers would bequeath it to them. Eventually, authorities released Tyrrell when no evidence materialized, and they zoomed in on Hayes as the sole target. Investigators stalled, and George Storrs was elected sheriff of Utah County a year after the murders. He believed that the man was innocent. However, on June 16, 1896, Hayes was found guilty and sentenced to hang. The sheriff spent the night in jail with him, hoping to get some sort of a confession. Keep in mind, this man's only been sheriff for 2 weeks, but as he sat next to Hayes, he wept and cried and said he was innocent and swore up and down that he missed his boy. And Storrs felt that he was innocent enough to file an appeal with the governor. Hayes was eventually given a retrial and released on bond, but quickly fled the state, probably rightly assuming he'd be used as a scapegoat if authorities couldn't find someone else to hang. Storrs now felt that it was his obligation to solve the case, and he compiled a list of all the stolen items, handing it out to police and post offices around Utah. Soon, a man wrote to him saying he helped a stranger and a drifter named James Weeks load most of the items into his cabin near Spanish Fork Canyon. The sheriff remembered Weeks. He'd actually arrested him a year before for cattle rustling right near Pelican Point, just days after the murder, although authorities at the time didn't realize that this murder had yet been committed. It was revealed that James Weeks made off with the loot, brought it back to Spanish Fork, came back for more, and was arrested for rustling before authorities even realized the boys were dead. Worrying that authorities might find the bodies and put two and two together if he was in jail by that time, Weeks hightailed it over the Rockies and into the mining towns of Colorado. Sheriff Storr found that the trail was long gone, but interviewed an old settler who claimed that he took a new name, C.T. Case, and that he'd worked a few months before heading to Cripple Creek. Trying to keep stealthy, the sheriff read a local newspaper in that town during their annual Labor Day celebration, looking for the killer in the crowd, when he noticed by chance a story of a man named C.T. Case in jail at Guffey, Colorado, for another murder. The paper noted that he was no simple drifter, but a practicing attorney, and someone that they called the King of Freshwater. Meanwhile, the sheriff learned that Case, or James Weeks, had befriended the miners in the town of Freshwater, claiming to be an attorney. Through scams and hucksterisms, he gained a number of mining claims. The Crampton brothers, however, knew that he was only going after their claims and weren't convinced, so Weeks went to their home and found William Crampton alone and shot him in the head. Shockingly, Weeks reported this to the police, saying that he was the one who discovered the bodies. He rounded up his own search party and posse, and he acted as the coroner for the man that he killed, ruling it murder. And after people began to realize what was going on, Case had moved to Chicago and married a second woman there. It seemed that the story of him being arrested in Guffey, Colorado never really happened, but that Guffey, Colorado wanted to arrest him for the murder of one of the brothers. And while living in Chicago, he had a new scam going, even writing for the Chicago Times. The Pinkerton agent was set to bring Case back to Guffey for the murder of Crampton, and then turn him over to Sheriff Storrs for the killing of the three boys at Pelican Point. But after a few days in Colorado, the sheriff learned that the Pinkerton agent simply released the killer, learning that he wouldn't be given half the reward money. And after this, the killer was never seen again. The last definitive mention from him was a note he sent to his wife in Utah that implied he felt his life wasn't worth living anymore. This might have been a red herring set to throw authorities off his trail. The sheriff followed clues that led him all over the country, from Oregon to San Francisco all the way over to Oklahoma, but turned up nothing. Finally, the sheriff concluded that he might have joined the army during the Spanish American War and defected, living anonymously in some foreign country until his death decades later. The three boys are now buried in the town of Benjamin, Utah, overlooking Pelican Point from across the lake. There's a monument there to their stepfather, Hayes, who was wrongly convicted and spent quite a while in jail, believing that he would be executed any day. On the graves is a dire curse left by Hayes. Him shall the scorn and wrath of man pursue with deadly aim, and malice, envy, spite, and lies shall desecrate his name. But truth shall conquer at the last, for round and round we run, and ever the right comes uppermost, and ever is justice done.